Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Paul and Rupert's weekly catch-up on what's been happening on Climate Transform and what to look forward to. Paul, I'm speaking to you relatively late on a Thursday evening here in London, having just jumped off a really engaging call with Amber Sparks and Emily Hazelwood from Blue Latitude, speaking to them about rigs to reefs. But it's been 3 events this week and another 3 to look forward to next week. Paul, how have you found this week?
Mate, it was a good week. Logistically, we're sort of flat out with our conferences that everyone knows that we're doing on voluntary carbon markets in the second week of September. But I had a conversation with Cameron Perks from Benchmark Mineral Intelligence talking about lithium markets. The whole thing was, title of it was "How Tight is Tight." So, I think that conversation was, I think as expected, and when I say as expected, the lithium markets remain tight. We discussed a Goldman Sachs report that had come out about 2 weeks ago, talking about how there could be surpluses in lithium, in the foreseeable future. I think Cameron did a pretty good job at poking holes in that report and sort of exposing some of the assumptions, which I think are a bit too generous. It's very, very few people who know the space, whether you're a lithium miner and itself, where, let's face it, you have a vested interest to talk about how tight supplies are. But generally speaking, and Cameron being sort of front and center of this, all the good analysts are sort of talking about sort of shortages or at least deficits up until 2025, 2026 at the earliest. And look, at the end of the day, the EV rollout is only as successful as the tightest commodity in the battery supply chain, and that currently is lithium. And we talked a little bit in the conversation about people are structurally bullish on copper and structurally bullish on nickel and all this sort of stuff. And we poke some holes in that argument, because if you have a really, really tight lithium market, meaning that there is a limited number of batteries that you can produce. And let's be frank, Ford, for example, saying they'll produce 2 million electric vehicles by 2026 is just a dream, right? Ain't happening. Is not happening, right? There's just not the batteries, there's not the capability, there's not the infrastructure to do that. So if lithium is going to be as tight as what many people think, does that actually lead to less demand for copper and less demand for other parts of the battery supply chain? Because if you can't get lithium, you don't have an electric vehicle. If you can't get lithium, you don't need the copper. And these are really sort of interesting arguments, very interesting discussion around all of this. Sorry, Paul, and that was we've had Benchmark representatives on before. Remember Casper from he was on mobility, and I think he's been on others as well. But this is the first of an ongoing partnership. Yeah, we're going to try to get them on try to get someone on from the team once a month. They've got analysts on. For those who don't know, Benchmark Mineral Intelligence, one of the leading consultancies on the battery supply chain, and they've got folks who they've got nickel analysts, cobalt, graphite, lithium, the whole shebang. So we're going to get people on probably once a month to talk about different things. So if we can have a lithium review twice a year, then that's probably sort of ideal for what we're thinking about. So the goal for us going forward is to try to have more of these collaborations. We do a lot of good work with the Women in Green Hydrogen. We've got some good work done with the Oxford Institute for Energy Studies, and just to have these sort of regular voices on here is great to develop a framework.
And speaking of Women in Green Hydrogen, Tuesday's event was Carolyn speaking to Lisa McDermott from ABN AMRO on the bankability of green hydrogen, and this event was really well attended, and really lots of interest. Just over 100 people tuned in live, which was great to see, because it was first thing on Tuesday morning, and really detailed presentation from Lisa on that. We've done a lot on green hydrogen. It's something. There's lots of Paul, I think you're almost slightly in the skeptical category on it. I don't know whether you're starting to warm for it anymore, but it was interesting to see that there's you come more from a finance background than I do, but there was Lisa was showing the 1 to 10 scale on whether you can whether a project is investable or not. And from ABN AMRO's level, that they seem to have a pretty high bar on what they will go into. And my feeling was that green hydrogen still, in a lot of cases, has work to do to achieve that.
Because there's no market yet, right? There's no market for this stuff yet. And that's the main thing. So BP goes off and announces a $44 billion project in northwestern Australia. Again, great. Who are they going to sell it to, right? Because there's no market for this stuff as yet. Now, it doesn't mean there won't be a market for jet fuel, and there won't be a market for a slew of different things. But as we stand today, it is infrastructure looking for a market, and a broader climate theme, Rupert, is the fact that the world is littered with really shitty, failed project finance offerings that have just gone bust, right? Because these are the problem with you have to if they build it, if you build it they will come type model is great until you have to fund something like this where the revenue on the back end is dubious, and hydrogen is one of those things. And and again, my skepticism revolves around the fact that defining green hydrogen requires that you're using renewables to do this. And the problem is, if you're going to electrify the world, we need a hell of a lot more power than what we have available. So, for example, German power prices reached an all-time record high yesterday, I think it was. That's devastating for German industry, right? And this is obviously it's a Ukraine thing. It's a slew of things going sort of combining into once to create this structural headwind. But I remain a little skeptical. I remain quite skeptical. But look, man, it's an arms race. We were going to do a hydrogen conference in October, and we pulled it because there's 7 hydrogen conferences in October. I'm going, who the heck is going to these events, right? That for me smells of a business that has too many players and not enough infrastructure, not enough revenue. A little bit of one place, I think. Yeah.
We'll see how it plays out. Certainly in the UK here today, where of course news is dominated by Boris Johnson announcing his resignation. So I don't know whether the strategy will change in the light of this, but certainly the UK strategy, energy strategy, has placed a very prominent role for hydrogen. Hydrogen here and nuclear. And to segue into my event today, also big offshore wind. There's been big asset sales of the portions of sea of the Crown Estate owns of Scotland. And as mentioned at the top of this hit, I spoke to Emily Hazelwood and Amber Sparks, who are co-founders of Blue Latitude, a company consulting primarily with oil companies, but increasingly with wind companies, on how to turn a liability in terms of a end-of-life asset and make it into something beneficial both to the companies involved, because they have to pay less from decommissioning, and to nature, because they can turn this stranded asset in effect into a reef. Really interesting discussion. There was some technical questions came in from the audience, which I'd encourage people to have a look back on that one when it goes up. What's it today? Thursday. That'll probably be up. Maybe by tomorrow if I lean on the team, but certainly ready for the start of next week. So yeah, 3 really good events this week. Paul, we've garbled on a bit here, but shall we touch briefly on what we've got to look forward to next week?
Yeah, mate, I've got a great one. So Mary Weiskopf, who is a partner at a company called Ember Infrastructure, will join us for a conversation about sort of project development and private equity style financing. Mary is someone who I met at a dinner in New York a couple of months ago. She is working with a couple of other female founders who were Credit Suisse bankers, infrastructure bankers, who have now started Ember. Really smart folks, really bright, really sophisticated project finance structuring, sophisticated deals, really interesting group. Mary is, maybe put it this way, when I have a little, my notebook here, when I normally have an average meeting, I may take half a page to a page of notes, and Mary I took 4 and literally couldn't keep up. She is She has, as I would say, a very large brain, does Mary, and I'm interested. She's going to give me a run for my money because she's really a very, very sophisticated player in this space, and someone we should be paying a lot of attention to.
So that's 11 o'clock New York time on Thursday. On Tuesday, we've got Carolyn back speaking with Anne-France Kennedy from Climate Link on the topic of are well-connected people better climate investors? And then on Wednesday, we've got Raven Hernandez, who's another young woman, similar profile, I guess, to Amber and Emily, who I had on earlier. A young woman making waves in a male-dominated industry. She's in the rideshare industry and looking to how they electrify rideshare, principally with Tesla so far, but to avoid Paul's elitist claims, I think they'll need to broaden that out a little bit. So I'm looking forward to seeing you ask us some challenging questions. I'm sure she'll give you some, hopefully give you a good bag.
Yeah, but as I said, we got the Tesla rideshare company because the electronic private plane company wasn't available. So, but no, that's not fair to them. And but no, we'll look again. It's all part of the process. So whether it's Teslas, whether it's Chevy Volts, I think there's room for this. So, mate, have a fabulous weekend, and we will talk to you again next week.
Thanks, Paul.